Hey everyone, Caleb with Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with an unscheduled video just because I can, and also because Mike the Used Book Guy asked for it. So guys, it's one of the perks that I said that is for like the whole membership side of things for the YouTube channel is if you guys say you want a video, I'll be a lot more inclined to make that video. And guys, I didn't really expect to make a totally non-book related video, but Mike the Used Book Guy did ask for it, so because he's my only member right now, thank you, dude, for that. And like, that really does help. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support you've done for my channel. Thanks for having the collab video, all that sort of stuff. Sorry for gushing, all that sort of thing. But because he asked for that video and because he was like, hey, what are you up to video, Caleb? So that's what this is about. So guys, right off the bat, let me tell you, I don't just do antique books. If you guys watch my channel at all, you guys know that. So I'm just going to go off and say some of the other things that I'm interested in, other things that I'm doing, and other projects that I've actually done that I've failed at, or maybe not failed, but put on pause for a hot minute. So guys, right off the bat, I'm going to start with failures because it's failures that don't necessarily define us, but they can help to define you, and they do help to sort of chip away who you are and who you aren't. So guys, Leonardo da Vinci, he has a famous line of when he made the David thing, and people asked how he did it, how he was so amazing, and he said he took the hunk of marble and he chipped away everything that was not David. And let's face it guys, in business it can be a lot that way too. You can test out all these different things and eventually you find out what's not you, what won't work, and all that sort of stuff, but you'll eventually carve away that David, that thing that works for you, that thing that you're so good at. And for me, I'm not insinuating whatsoever that I'm good at antique book selling. I've been corrected so many times on all the different things where, yes, I do enjoy the corrections on some things, but other times some people are just being fart nuggets for the sake of being a fart nugget. You know how it is. But guys, I'm no expert in this. I might know a little bit more than the average person that doesn't know anything, but I know nothing compared to so many of the people that have been doing this for so long. So please do not feel like I'm calling you out if you do like offer your advice on these things. I am so happy to learn so many things, but there's still those tricks. So just saying that really quick. But guys, one of my many failures, I actually have one right here now, is my journals. I would hand make these journals, guys. I've shown them off in other videos, but I would literally spend hours and hours making all these different journals. I would sell them for 25 bucks a pot, and I know it sounds like 25 bucks a pot. You just said you spent hours and hours on these. How could you make money? Guys, I assembly lined the poop out of these things. I would make, in one batch, I'd make 20 or so, and it doesn't add that much time to actually batch them out. So I have a giant pile of them. I've been selling off a couple of them every now and then, but I'd make these things. I'd spend all the time I could. They had cool little tassel things, all that sort of stuff. But it's a business. Oh, and it also is made out of recycled denim, which is so much cheaper to buy than big old reams of denim, believe it or not. But guys, I'd get that denim from Goodwill Outlet. You guys know how much I love Goodwill Outlet, so I'd actually get it there. I'd pay dirt stinking cheap for denim. So instead of paying like, I want to say when I was doing it, it was like 30 bucks a square yard to get denim, but you could buy a pair of jeans from Goodwill Outlet, which has enough denim to make quite a few of those, for like $1 or something along those lines, maybe a little bit more than $1, depends on how big they are. But I'd buy that, I'd sell them, and once, I think I ran all the numbers, and I think I made $14 each book once I calculated the shipping, the packaging, the time I put in, all that sort of stuff. So the time I put in, the $12 was what I was paying myself for an hourly per book. Sorry, not per book. $12 was my wages per book that I made, sorry. So that's sort of a piece rate payment that I would pay myself. Hourly, I was making, I want to say 50 bucks an hour with how many I was mass producing in the way that I was doing it at the time. Time that I took building the tooling to do it, not a whole lot of time, so that was pretty nice. I mean, all I had to do was build a few the very first time, and it was quite the struggle to do my first few books, guys. I know this one right here looks pretty cool. I mean, this one is used. I've been filling it out with my stuff for a hot minute, but this one, a couple years old. I've been using it. Holds up very well. Like, quality on this is very stinking good because, again, I handmade these. I would actually hand bind with thread all these different things. I've actually mentioned that in another video, showing you guys that a little bit more, so you guys can check that out if you want. But that's something that I did. It's something that I really enjoyed, and it's something I will return to, I think, down the road, because it's a great product. But for right now, it's not something I'm interested in. With what I need to do with my time, it's not something I'm interested in whatsoever. Down the road, again, I'd love to do it. I just love the look of these things. I love the feel of them. There's something about denim journals that just is beautiful. But that's not the thing for me right now, so I put that on pause. I took down my listings. I closed my Amazon thing out for it. I took down the eBay listings for it. I'm pretty sure, 99% sure I took it out on eBay. But it wasn't that it wasn't selling. I actually was selling several, but the amount of time that I'd put in, the amount of work that it was, all that sort of stuff, it was distracting me from the other ventures in my life that I need to put more time into. So for now, that one's a failed venture. But with that said, on to the next failed venture, which is something I'm not planning on returning to, something that was not profitable. And partially it's because I didn't put enough time into it, but the reason why I didn't put more time into it is I don't have infinite time. Believe it or not, I'm not a vampire. I'm not going to be here for eternity. I got somewhere else to be for eternity. But one of the things that I wasted some time on, honestly, was I actually made a clip art website where I made a whole bunch of different clip arts, put them on the internet, and I actually had it so people could download them for free for commercial use, because since I made them, I could do that, all that sort of stuff. That's something I was doing. It was getting some traction, and if I put more time into it, I know for a fact I could have made some pretty good money on it. But I knew that the time it'd take to get to that point was going to be a lot of time. And it was eating away at me. I was like, I know I wasted this much money on hosting, on the website name, all these sorts of things. What should I do? So I was thinking about it. I'm like, I should get rid of it. And then, guys, I'm sure you guys have heard about it a couple times. AI came out. And guys, AI has been around for decades, so it's not a new development. It is something I was actually aware of when I made my website for clip art. But once the AI stuff really started taking off, and there's one called Midjourney, there's another one called Stable Diffusion, there's a dozen other ones, DALL-E, DaVinci, something like that. No, not DaVinci. I don't know. There's quite a few different ones that actually just create art. So you guys know about ChatGPT and the such. They make text things. These other ones, you type stuff in and it gives you a photo. It can give you some amazing photos, and it's just like insane how good of stuff it gives you. However, in addition to some amazing photos, it also does clip art. And I was like, well, I don't see anyone else making clip art with this thing on a large scale to fill up a website, but it's only a matter of time before someone does that. So because I didn't want to put in a boatload of time renovating my website to be everything that it could be, I was like, I'm going to cut it. I lost my business due to the AI revolution, I'm not too worried about that whatsoever, because again, I didn't put in enough time to make it something amazing, but it was something you could sort of see the writing on the wall for. So that is another failed business of mine. And I'm just thinking right off the top of my head right now, guys, because I don't normally accept failure too right quick, but there are quite a few things that I have accepted failure on. Another such thing that I'm sort of accepting failure on is cookbook lots. I tested that out for you guys. It's something I've tried a couple times in the past, but not on the scale that I've done it lately for the test for you guys. I got a boatload of cookbooks that I was selling in lots that have not sold, so that's another failure sort of thing. That's for the for the eBay book selling sort of thing. And I know I said I wasn't going to focus too much on that, but it's something I'm going to address. So that's a failed thing. Another thing that I count as a failure, but not necessarily, is the mass markets. I do sell those. I do make some good money on them, but guys, the amount of work that it does for me, that it takes for me to do the ebook sort of, sorry, why do I keep saying ebook? To do the whole mass market paperback sort of thing, it's a lot of work to do all the different listings. Like, if I was interested in doing it, I could make an entire business just of that, but it's not my focus. It's not something that I just get so much pleasure out of. Like antique books, guys. There's a dude on YouTube, Wrangle Star. He actually, when he has certain things that he really likes, he says it gives him the fizz. Antique books, they give me the fizz. Whereas like new books, it's like, they're a dime a dozen. I can get new books anywhere. Antique books, there's a story to these. So those I definitely enjoy a whole lot more than the mass markets. So because of that, I'd sort of see it as maybe failed. Maybe failed is not something, it's quite the right word, but it's not something I'm passionate about. It's not something I plan on continuing if I don't have to. So for me, the mass markets, it's not something I'll keep doing most likely, unless of course, if I can find large print love-inspired romances or love-inspired suspense or any of those books. I'll probably keep selling those because those do amazing for me. But besides that, probably not. Another thing that I would count as a failure is actually hardcover books from popular authors. So I'm talking James Patterson, Clive Cussler, all those sorts of authors that you get the 1,000,005 hardcovers. You go to a bookstore and they have like 5 shelves just of these authors that do the adventures, the police procedural or whatever that is, all those sort of ones. I would count that as another failure in my book business because they just don't sell, guys. Like, I understand that they do sell. They sell a lot. I've sold quite a few of them. But the amount of times that I have them sell, it's like, down here in antique books is like just barely below that. Of course, I'm selling these in some weird lots every now and then, and I have some people ask for very specific books out of the lots that I'm selling, so I do that. But the amount of profit that I make on those for the amount of work that it takes to list these things, for me, with my business model, it just is not worth my time. Of course, as I mentioned with the mass markets, there is absolutely a business in that. In fact, with the cookbooks, there's an absolute business in that you can make money on. There's a business with those hardcover ones. There's a business with the paperback books. There's business in all these sorts of things. But for me, I found my niche, the thing that I enjoy the most, the thing I make the most money in, is the antique books. So that is my speciality. I do test out the other things for you guys. And again, I have found that there's definite businesses that you guys can have in those other fields. But in the case of the mass markets, guys, you need storage out of the wazoo. Personally, if I was going to continue doing mass markets, which, let's face it, I might, because there is some good money in it. If I was going to do it, I would actually make a lot on eBay, of 10 X and X books, and you can get these 10. The ones in the photo are just an example of what you'll get. They're not necessarily the ones you'll get, that sort of thing, and it's just 10 random books. And then I would have 3 pallets full of those books in the back room, where, oh, we just sold 5 books from this author. I'd grab 5 random books from that pile, ship it off, that sort of thing. That's how I would do that business model. I would not list these mass markets individually. You're not going to make very much money on that. Of course you could. People make money on all sorts of things, but you're not going to make a whole lot of money on that. For me, I found that lots are the way to go with that. For the hardcover books from the popular authors, that's what I call them, like Clive Cussler, and whatnot, I find that those sell well in lots, especially if you divvy it out based on series. They do sell with individuals as well, but I find that the lots generally are the best sellers, partially because you're giving people a little bit of a deal. Cookbooks, again, I found that lots were the best way to send those out. I think I have a video on that, so you guys can check that out. But there's a lot of things that you guys can do, and these things are profitable, definitely, but they're not for me. They don't make me as much money as the antique books, and they're not something I'm as interested in. So for me, that's something I would personally call a failed business, because it's not something I plan on continuing. And just because it's failed doesn't mean it's not making money. It's just, it's not something for me, that sort of thing. So that's all that sort of stuff. So guys, now on to the other things that I'm into. So I've mentioned in other videos, guys, that I'm an author. I write my own books. I probably have over 40 or so books published. These books, guys, they're not like all novel length. I have quite a few that are short stories, so short stories being like 10 to 20,000 words. So I guess those are technically novellas and novelettes, something like that. I don't give a rip about what they're called, which is pretty lame to come from an author, because there are so many authors that are absolute psychos about calling it the right thing, but it really doesn't matter. A story is a story. But I have quite a few books published on that, stories published on that. And that does pretty well for me. It initially made like no money, and if you guys know any author people, they will tell you that they made no money in their first few years. You have to publish quite a few books before you actually make money. I will be doing a video on this in the future, most likely, because I've had a few people request learning about how to publish books on KDP, so I will go over that, because you guys can self-publish your own books. There's a lot of scams out there in the publishing world. Do not pay people to publish your books. Pro tip right there: do not pay people. That's called a vanity press. They usually aren't worth what you pay whatsoever, so avoid that. But there's a lot of ways to make $1 million. Then there's a lot of ways to lose $1 million. So just keep that in mind before you pay for anything. But with that said, though, guys, that's one of the things that I'm into. Initially, I didn't make very much money on that whatsoever, but it was something I was willing to run with a whole lot more than other things, because end of the day, I like writing stories. I love telling stories, and that's partially what the YouTube channel is, sort of. I mean, I'm sort of telling stories. I'm sharing stories on this sort of thing. I'm passionate about antique books. That's why the thing's about antique books. So it is fun to share. Of course, there's a lot of costs attached to doing a YouTube channel, a lot of costs attached to doing your own book writing business. But I find that the YouTube costs a whole lot more, hence why I started the whole membership sort of thing, because, wow, that's a lot of money. But with that said and done, though, guys, I do write my own books. I write science fiction. I've written one nonfiction. I'm hoping to get into a few more nonfiction things for Bible studies. As I mentioned before, I'm a Christian. One of the things that I've done growing up is I've actually led Christian small groups, led my own small church for a little bit, helped out and all these sorts of things. So Bible studies is not much of a reach for me. I do know a little bit about theology, just a little bit. So that is something I've also done. The Bible study actually does pretty well. Novels, not as well for a book by book basis. You have to write a lot of novels before you start making money. You can make just a couple Bible studies and make some really good money. So keep that in mind as well if you guys are getting into this. Nonfiction, there's some great money to be had, especially if you guys know some more niche sort of things, or if you can find a niche audience for whatever you're writing nonfiction for. This is not a channel for that, so I'm not going to be addressing every single question that you guys have on that, but I will go over a few things for you guys on all of that in the future video where I talk about how to publish on KDP. I'm going to make that as fast and thorough of a compilation go over tutorial video as I can, but I'm not going to go after that too hard because, again, this is a book about this is a channel about antique books and book selling in general. While you do sell books on KDP, it's not really what I'm really shooting for with this, so sorry for that in advance. But with that said, that's another one of my businesses. It's something that I personally got into because I was like, I've been doing antique books for so long. I was selling them, and I think it was the moment that I sold my first edition of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine that I was like, okay, I'm a few months into this business and I'm already tired of selling other people's books. I want to sell my own book. I want my book to at some point be worth the same as H.G. Wells' book. Or honestly, I didn't expect that to happen. I don't expect that to happen, honestly. But it's like, I want people to like look for my book on a shelf. Like that just, there's a certain feel that it's like, I want my story to be felt, to be sought out. I want people to feel what I'm trying to make them feel. I want people to cry for my story. I want them to laugh. All that sort of stuff. I want people to fall in love with the world I spin. That's something I've always sort of done. I've always wanted to write stories. I've always written stories. So for me, it was just sort of a logical thing to be like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm going to publish these books. It's going to be great. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. So I've been doing the book writing since 2019, I think is when I published my first book. I actually had my first book all written, edited, all that sort of stuff before I graduated high school. And I actually had some friends read it because one person told another, and they were like, yeah, you got to read the story. And people read the story in my high school and a few other places, and they enjoyed it and had enough people be like, hey, you should publish this. So I was like, huh. And that was something I had heard. I had heard it. But I guess it never really got home through my thick head until I actually got to the point of selling books in general. And I was like, man, I really got to publish. I really got to make sure that my own stories are out here in the world. Other people are selling them as well. And I actually mentioned this. I can't remember exactly where I mentioned it, but I mentioned it somewhere on the YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure, I actually had some of my books actually pop up in thrift books online. I was like, hey, not only is that one of my books, but that means that someone bought a paperback version of my book. Guys, if you sell your own books on KDP, you will see that most of your sales will be ebooks. So it's always fun when you get a paperback sale because it's like, look, that means my book might actually show up in the wild. I might actually see my book at a Goodwill, at a friend's library sale, any sort of thing like that. I have yet to actually have that happen, but it's something I'm sort of like, one of these days, just you wait. And then I'll like sign that thing and be like, here you go, it's worth nothing more because I'm a nobody, but it's signed by the author. So that's something that I've sort of thought about, fantasized about with my whole side of things on that. So with that said, that's another thing that I'm into. Another thing that I do is affiliate marketing for things online. So the way that I do that is I actually write blogs on specific things, and I have affiliate links for that sort of stuff. Technically, you could see this whole Antique Book Collective thing as sort of that. I do have things that I link to and do affiliate sales for. I make a grand total of, over the whole time I've been doing this channel, which is going on 2 years. It's a little over a year and a half, so it's going on 2 years. Over all that time, I've made like, I want to say $2 maybe. So obviously I'm making so much money on that. But the other thing that I'm doing this on is making a whole lot more money. Obviously it's not on antique books because there's not a whole lot of money in that, seems, or at least I'm a nobody still, something along those lines. But that is something else that I'm doing. I do have a blog that I've put in hundreds of hours into, probably maybe 1,000 at this point. It shows up first rank for a lot of different things, definitely first page for a whole lot more things. Again, I've been doing that one for several years. I think I started that in 2019 for that affiliate blog. And I'm not getting into what that specific thing's about because that's a bunny trail that I don't want to get on. And I also, if you guys do anything with affiliate blog folks, you know that we are really cagey about our niches because we're like, my niche is mine. If you get in, you're going to make my blue water niche be a Redwater one, and that's a whole thing on the Blue Water strategy for business. Blue water means there's no blood in the water. Red means there is blood in the water. That means there's a lot of competition, a lot of people getting eaten up by them sharks, whereas the blue water, there's no sharks to eat you up. So Blue Water strategy, guys, keep that in mind. I haven't read the book, don't know if I'd recommend it because I haven't read it, but it is something that you guys can sort of think about in principle. You don't want to get into a really competition heavy sort of thing because you'll see race to the bottom, i.e. Amazon FBA. You have a lot of people racing to the bottom on all the FBA things. You might have your book listed for $5 and the next day it's worth $3, and if you guys already listed it for $5 you're already losing money, so sorry, but that's something to keep in mind though, guys, is all those sorts of things. So yeah, not going to go too much more on that. So with that said, that's the businesses that I'm currently running. Let me just think really quick if I'm missing anything. Oh, I have a website, Facebook group, all that sort of stuff on helping other authors write books as well. Not getting into that. That is not affiliated with this, so not going to tell you guys if you ask, sorry. But that is another thing that I'm doing. Obviously not making a whole lot of money on that, but that is something affiliated with the Bible studies that I created. So all that's said. So with that said, on to the next thing. I'm just looking around because I have, this is my office area. I'm making sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, candle making, that's something I've looked at starting, and I hope to start doing more seriously, sort of, long term. The reason for that, guys, is, for me, if you guys have been following my channel, you know that I'm fixing to move to the middle of nowhere. In the middle of nowhere, I'm going to be doing a few things. One of those things is beehives, so I want to make use of the wax. So got into candle making just enough that I got a few of the things, did the learning that I need to make that. Essential oils is an essential for that sort of thing for what I want to do. So I will be doing essential oil candles down the road, which honestly I will be selling on eBay, so that is sort of affiliated with this, but not just yet. So stay tuned. You'll be waiting like a good 5 years or so before I start doing that potentially, but that is something else that I'm working on. So it's a very fun thing that I do enjoy doing, all these sorts of things, all these crafts. If you guys have heard, I mean, all these things are very hands-on things, except for the blog and the writing. Those things are a little more digital, but we're just now getting into the more hands-on things that I'm doing, because guys, if you know me personally, if you like face-to-face know me, you know that I really enjoy getting my hands dirty and I like doing stuff. You know I like the heat, you know I like the sun, you know I like digging holes. So with that said, I want to move to the middle of nowhere. I'm fixing to move to the middle of nowhere. I've got money squirreled away. I've got a lot of different things, and end of the day, there's a reason for that. So guys, I'm working on starting a gold mine. I'm working on something called gasifiers. I'm working on something called geothermal energy. I'm working on farming. I'm working on all sorts of stuff. So guys, I know that sounds like a whole lot of stuff. I know that sounds like I'm hitting every single thing under the sun, but these things are specific things that I've always had dreams to do, or for one reason or another, I have a very avid interest in these sorts of things. So I've been doing designs for these sorts of things for better part of a decade at this point, and for someone who's 24, better part of a decade for anything is most of my life, honestly. So guys, that is something I've been working on for a hot stinking minute. The thing that the things that I've listed out on that, so gasifiers is one of the newer additions. Gasifiers and geothermal are two things to make electricity. So gasifiers, they're just very, very fancy incinerators, basically, that are a whole lot better for the environment than an actual incinerator. You put in garbage or wood stock or anything like that, and you get stuff out the other end, like hydrogen, electricity. You can do ammonia, all these sorts of things, because what you do with the gasifiers, and I'm not going to get too into this, guys, I'm not going to bore you too much, but it's really cool with the gasifiers, is you actually put in something like a tire, which has a lot of carbon in it, a whole lot of hydrogen, all that sort of stuff. You go down to the molecular level with these things, just the individual elements, and these things get combusted. The combustible materials, the hydrogen, the carbon, the oxygen in that thing, it actually gets pulled out into something called syngas, which is short for synthetic gas, and that all gets routed through a system which you can either immediately burn that sort of thing, and it's a lot cleaner to burn that as opposed to the trash itself. So you burn that and you can make electricity, or you can separate things out and it actually can make hydrogen, or it can make ammonia, or it can make diesel, anything that you really want that is based on oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. Potentially there's other things that you can add as well. It really depends on what sort of downstream system you have for that, but it's something that's very cool. It's something I've studied for a hot minute, and it's actually something, believe it or not, I started going after this in high school. So senior year, it was really funny. We finished, I want to say it was finished spring finals, something like that. did we have spring finals? I don't know. It's been too long at this point. But it was funny. We get back from spring break. I think I was back for spring break. And then I was like, all right, everyone, deuces, I'm gone for a week. And everyone's like, what? Where are you going, Caleb? Because at the time I was doing search and rescue. So I'm sure a lot of them were like, oh, is there a search and rescue thing going on? I was like, no, I'm actually doing a business trip. And they're like, business trip? What? So I actually went from Oregon. I actually went down to New Orleans for a expo down there based on the garbage industry to speak with and do meetings with a bunch of different people. I spoke with, over the time that I was very interested in that, going after that really hard, I spoke with a lot of millionaires, billionaires, all that sort of stuff, people with a lot of capital. A lot of people were very interested in it. Personally, I ended up backing off on that a bit because I personally did not want to cede the control that I wanted to have on the business. A lot of these people, if they're putting in all the money for it, they're going to want all the control. And a lot of these people, they had their own specific plans that they wanted for it. So one such guy that we spoke with was actually wanting to do the gasifiers on a Caribbean island that was meant for millionaires, and they wanted to be a little more self-sufficient, and the gasifiers would have allowed them to be a little more self-sufficient. Problem was, I would have had to be there shoveling garbage for a gasifier my entire life. I'm here to be doing that. I'm here to be organizing these sorts of things because I know it sounds like I'm an absolute idiot for antique books. I know I make lots of mistakes on this, and I make lots of mistakes in general, guys, but I am someone who's working on larger scale things than just an old antique bookshop. Antique books, guys, that is a long-term dream of mine. I do want to have my own bookshop. I've always been a book nerd, and because of that, I've always wanted to have my own bookshop, but it's not my biggest strong suit, let's say. For me, if we are going back to school, as I already referenced school a couple times, if we're looking at things I did well in school, it's the hardcore science sort of stuff that's very nerdy. Math stuff I did pretty well in, all that sort of stuff. I also did well in English as well, hence why I started writing books. But these are just things that I'm maybe naturally talented in, maybe gifted in, whatever you want to call it. I don't give a rip what you call it, but they're things that are more interesting to me. So that's another thing that I'm into is the gasifiers. Geothermal, you guys probably know how that goes. You get the hot rocks, hot water, all that sort of stuff, and you get that to power a turbine, which makes electricity. Pretty simple. Other things that I'm getting into, though, is farming and all that sort of stuff. So, guys, for me, as long as I can remember, farming and gold mines are things that I've always dreamt of doing. It's always been something that I've always just loved the idea of. It's like, I want that and I want that. And for me, for the farming side of things, I've been studying this for a hot minute. Of course, I'm no expert in it whatsoever. We all know I'm no expert in anything, honestly, except for maybe being an idiot. I don't know. But something I've always loved about the farming, guys, is wheat. My family, I have family that has farms, extended family, obviously, but they live over in Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington. Man, I can't talk now. Shows you how big of an idiot I am. But I have a family out there, and they own wheat fields out of the wazoo. And guys, there's just something, whenever we do family reunions and we're driving through those wheat fields, there's just something about seeing rolling hills of just golden wheat. And that's just always spoken to me. It's always been like, that's what I want. There's something about seeing the fields of wheat that's just always gotten me so excited. And like, I know people think about farming, and I think about old MacDonald with his farm with a cow and a pig and all these sorts of things. For me, I'm just thinking about hundreds of acres of wheat. I know it's a very weird thing to think about. I know it's a weird thing to have a long-term fantasy about as a kid, but it's something I've always wanted. I've always looked at wheat, golden fields of wheat, and I thought, that's wealth. That's hunger. That is the solution to so many ills in the world. I mean, if I can get food growing, that means I'm filling mouths. I'm making sure people aren't going hungry. World hunger is a big issue, and it's something I was considering even when I was a little old kid. I'm a weird kid, I know. That's why I got into antique books. I don't know. But guys, that's something I've always had a dream of, is the farming, the crops, that sort of thing. So that is something I'm working on. I have been scouting out areas for that for a hot minute. Just want to say, as we're talking about scouting things out for farming, I hate the government. Hate the government. So now that that's out of the way. So guys, in Oregon, we have this wonderful thing called checkerboarding, which is carryover from the 1800s, I'm pretty sure, where the government owns a square mile, and then the next square mile is private land. Then the government owns a square mile, and it's a checkerboard of 1 square mile of government, 1 square mile of private held. And that privately held stuff is not a square mile all privately held. Most of the time, a lot of the times, it's like segmented off, and the state owns part, the county owns part, and then like 500 people own the rest of it. And it's absolutely horrendous. So I'm like looking at all these places, and I'm like, where can I find somewhere that's contiguous acreage that is just not cut into 1,000,005 pieces, because that's annoying. That adds overhead for the farm, all that sort of stuff. I want to have something that's contiguous and not insane. So I have found some spots for that, but the government does not make it easy whatsoever, and thanks to the government, they actually are not selling off those checkerboarded parcels anymore. Hopefully they start doing that again, because there is absolutely zero use for the government for these things. Most of them, they actually lease out the land because they have no use for it. It's not a national park, it's not anything, it's literally just checkerboarded land where it's a square mile that you can't do diddly squat on anyway. You can't even get to a lot of this land, it's stupid. And then people start complaining that you can't get to it because the government's stupid, and it's stupid, so that's all addressed. Hear me out. Stupid. But yeah, that's all that for that. And I know I just did a tangent. I know I probably annoyed you guys, but that's fine. I don't give a rip. But that's something that I've been spending a lot of time on, looking at all these maps, looking at all the rain, all the water rights, all that sort of stuff. It's crazy, guys. Water rights is a very important thing that lots of folks are getting into. And since lots of people are getting into it, there's a lot of people buying land, stripping away their water rights, and leaving you just dry land, which doesn't really work for farms. So it's something else that you got to consider as you're doing that sort of thing. So if you guys are into that, beware. And again, because I'm interested in that, it's something I will be dealing with, and I'm not too worried about because I am good at problem solving. Even though I look like an idiot, I can fix some problems. Another thing though, guys, is the gold mine. I've mentioned the gold mine many times before. In fact, I've shown you guys this a few times before. Excuse me as I dig in my pocket. So right here, tiny bit of gold. You guys probably can't see it, but in this tiny thing, I mean, it's a pinch, a tiny pinch, and that tiny pinch of gold, I just like carrying it around because it's fun to have just a pinch of gold. That tiny pinch right there, guys, is worth between like $5 and $10. Tiny pinch. Like, you could, if it was dust, you could blow it and it'd be gone. And that's like $5 to $10 right there. That's something I've always had an interest in. It's like something I've always studied as well. And because I've always studied it, when the opportunities when the opportunities started falling into my lap with the antique book business, when I started making the money on that, I was like, okay, for a fact, I'm going to be buying all the land that I can with this antique book money. I'm going to be taking those proceeds, buying land, and that land is going to be for my farm dream. It's going to be for my mining dream, that sort of stuff. And from those things, I'm going to do all the other dreams. So I've got a lot of different convoluted things where it sounds like it's all over the board, but all these things are interconnected with what I want to do, except for the antique book business. That literally came out of left field, as did the writing. Those things are totally on their own, totally unaffiliated with anything else I'm doing, but they are something that I'm still passionate about. It's sort of like hobbies. These are hobbies, whereas the other things are what I want to do as careers, that sort of thing. So for me, the gold mine, all that money, all those sort of things that I've been saving up for is going towards the gold mine. It's going towards the farm. It's going towards those things, because from those bases, I'm going to be able to expand into all the other dreams that I have, all the other career goals that I have for myself. And with all that said and done, though, guys, I've addressed those main business things. So now, with all that said, let me just say, next stuff that I'm going to say is not financial advice. It's not something I'm saying you should do. It is stuff that I do dig into a lot more in the members-only sections of this channel, because I do want to have a little bit of a gap between the main channel and these sort of things that I don't normally like addressing. I do economic videos every now and then where I give you guys updates on what's going on, what I'm personally doing, all that sort of stuff. But in the members only channel area, I do dive into these things a whole lot more, because end of the day, I don't want to have this stuff available to the open public, because people might do some stupid stuff and blame me by having the little, I'm going to call it a paywall. I know in my description I say I don't have paywalls. That's for running the actual eBay business. This is a paywall just to be like, this isn't for everyone. This is just what I'm doing for those of you guys that really want to learn a whole lot more about me, what I'm doing, all that sort of stuff. So with all that said, what I'm about to go over is not investment advice. It's just what I'm personally doing. So with that said, right here behind me, I have some silver and I have some gold, mostly silver because I like dropping stuff. But guys, I am personally investing in silver and gold in a lot of different ways. What I'm personally doing is stocks right now is about half of my play, and the remaining half of my play is in silver. Remember how I said that I'm squirreling money away for the gold mines, all that sort of stuff for the farm? A lot of that money that I'm squirreling away for that, in fact, most of my savings is actually in silver and gold. Obviously, that's not all stored right here on me because that'd be sketchy. There's something called midnight gardening where you go out at night and start gardening. I'm not telling you what you're planting. I'm not telling you where you're planting it, but if you guys are catching the drift, it means you don't keep all your silver and gold at home, especially if you're telling people that you have it. In fact, one of the keys of having silver and gold is don't tell people you have it. So don't tell anyone I'm doing this. Wink, wink. because I'm doing this on the internet now, y'all know. But with that said though, guys, that is something that I'm personally doing. It's something that I do for my own savings. I make a whole lot more money on my silver and gold holdings than I do on my stupid savings account that pays 0.0001% interest on what I have. Honestly, guys, my stock brokerage account pays better than my bank account, so there's an idea. And I'm not talking like what I do for investments. I'm talking like the money I have not invested pays a better interest rate on that. So that's something to keep in mind. So with that said though, guys, I do want to show you guys some of these silver coins. It's just very fun. Part of the hobby of part of the hobby about doing silver coins, gold coins, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes you can get those ones that are a little bit older that have a little bit more value. Some of those things are called numismatics. Some of them are just older coins that people have a little more value in. This one here, guys, is actually it's called a trade unit, and they started making these back in the 70s. And let's see, does this flip like a coin? It flips like a metal. Okay, so this one right here, you guys can see it has the globe on this side, pretty cool thing. Then on the other side, we have some scales. So guys, these trade units actually started coming out in the 70s, and they were really cool, and I'm not making this a whole video about showing off gold and silver, but that's something that you can invest in if you guys want. Not investment advice, it's just something I'm personally doing. But I bought some of those from a local coin store, had a good deal, and I knew for a fact that some of these ones were vintage and worth a little bit more, so I made sure to pick them up. I made sure to get a couple of the ones that were beautifully toned. I mean, I love some of the toning on some of these coins, but those guys, those are just rounds. I can't believe I just called them coins. I'm sorry. These are rounds. Coins, I've gone over coins in the past. Coins are the ones that are actual government currencies, government denominated currencies, but they are made with real gold and silver. So this one right here, guys, is called a peace dollar. And this one right here is my favorite. It's called a Morgan. And I know I sound very mainstream for saying Morgans are my favorite, but they really are. I'm sorry, peace dollars, you're cool. Morgans are cooler. Another one of my favorites, though, is the half dollars. A Walking Liberty half dollar. That's a peace dollar. Dropping things left and right. Great job, Caleb. The Walking Liberty halves, I love those as well. But you guys will, if you guys do this, you'll find your own pick of what's your favorite. You might like bars, you might like coins, you might like rounds, all that sort of stuff. Not telling you guys to invest in it, but there is a whole school of thought of if you don't hold it, you don't own it, that sort of thing. And that's an entire warning against doing ETF, gold and silver. Not telling you guys what to invest in, but I'm personally invested in the physical for that side of things. I just have a little bit stored right here just to show off for you guys for the channel, because I do get questions on that sometimes. And it's also just cool to show off, and it sort of goes with the whole antique book vibe. The reason why, guys, I do have these connected is because I am working on selling some gold and silver on my eBay store. I have sold a Morgan silver dollar in the past on my eBay store. I actually bought some of these coins right here, the vintage coins, the antique coins, for the reason of reselling on my eBay store. I actually wanted to hang on to them for... I was thinking I'd hang on to them for a couple of weeks before I'd sell them, or a couple of months or a couple of years before I sold them, to allow them to appreciate and value more. However, since I bought them, they're actually, silver has actually jumped up almost $2, and I haven't held on to these too long, guys. Like, legitimately, I think I've had them for less than 2 weeks. So, might be just over 2 weeks now that I think about it, but somewhere in there. It's been less than a month. But it's funny, guys, I did a post on this. I can't remember if I did it for everyone to see. I can't remember if it was a members only post, but I did do a post on this about how I traded out of my I bonds. So treasury bonds, the United States Treasury, you can buy something called I bonds. I bonds are really cool, but for me, I was not making a high enough percentage on them. With what silver had done that week, I was like, okay, I know for a fact I can make more money with silver if I do trade out of this right now, get rid of my I bonds and buy silver instead. And so far, that's been a pretty good trade, because instead of getting 7% for the quarter, I've made about 10% on these already. So 10% in a month is a lot more than 7% in a quarter. Of course, there's no guarantee that silver is going to keep on rising. There's no guarantee it's going to fall. We'll see. It is a little bit of a gamble, if you want to call it a gamble, but it is something that I'm personally more interested in. It's something I've done a lot more research on. I bonds are really cool. They're some people call them certificates of guaranteed, not return, but loss, something like that, because a lot of these times the I bonds actually pay less than what the actual interest rate is, or potentially the actual interest rate that the government states is here, but the real interest rate's here, that sort of thing. Oh, certificates of guaranteed confiscation is what some people call them. Of course, those are the hardcore gold bugs and the nerds, that sort of thing. But it's something I just think sort of cute and funny to think about. And for me, I thought that this was a better play for me. So far, it's been a better play for me, and it's something that's paid off for me in the past. So it's something I'm going to keep on doing. But with that said, that is something that you guys can do. If you guys do want to buy gold and silver, this is not investment advice. Keep that in mind. But if you guys do want to buy gold and silver, I would recommend not buying them on sketchy websites. For example, Temu and Wish and other such things like that. Don't buy them on eBay from some sketchy seller. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend buying them on eBay at all unless you know for a fact that the person selling is a very legit person. Again, none of this is an investment advice. Don't do anything if you guys don't think it's a good idea. Be sure to consult your investment advisor, financial advisor, whatever you want to call it. But for me, guys, I really enjoy going to the actual coin store, talking to an actual coin store owner, knowing that they are legit. I bought these, a lot of these from a local coin shop. In fact, I bought all those except for the gold backs from 2 different local coin shops. So there you go for that. But there's also online brokers that can be trusted and are quite kosher. Those include ones like SD Bullion. You can go to sdbullion.com/new and you can actually get some gold or silver at spot price, which is an amazing deal. You can't normally get that lately, so that is something to keep in mind. There's other websites as well. I actually made another video where I talked about the different places that you can get gold and silver. Of course, you can also get gold and silver at estate sales. I have yet to do that at any estate sales because most of the time they want a good premium on top of those things, or the people running the estate sales already hold on to the gold and silver themselves because they know the value of what this stuff is. But that is something for you guys to keep in mind. So personally, I'm invested in the physical for this sort of thing. And as you guys know, working on gold mine, that means I'm going to be getting a little bit more of that. I plan on divesting of that gold as soon as I get it most of the time because, let's face it, cash sort of exists. I sort of need to use that to keep the gold mine going, so that sort of thing. But with that said, that's the physical gold and silver side of things. As I said already, I'm working on I'll be listing these on my eBay store before too long. The ones that when I went to the coin store, guys, they had just buckets. Not buckets, actually. They had trays where they actually had these laid out so I could actually pick the ones that I wanted. So I actually picked, when I was buying my Morgan Silver dollars and my Peace dollars, I picked ones that had certain kinds of toning or were in better condition than others. Of course, there's also things called key dates, which are more rare of dates or more expensive coins, that sort of thing. But for me, I was just looking for condition and toning. The reason for that is because people love coins that are in great condition, and they also love coins that have certain kinds of toning. So, actually, I'm grabbing this again. So something I thought was really cool was this. You guys probably aren't going to be able to see it, but this Peace dollar right here is actually a little pink. And this one here is actually a little blue. And that's called toning. So it's not the most extreme versions of pink and blue, but potentially you guys can notice the difference. But when you guys can get ones that are special colors or have special coloring on them, this one here has some gold toning on this Walking Liberty half dollar. And sometimes when you guys can get those things, it can multiply the value of your coin. We're not talking like, oh, it's worth $1 or $2 more. We're talking like double the value, triple the value. I was mentioning in another video, guys, someone had a Morgan Silver dollar that they had listed on eBay. Don't know what it's going to sell for, but they had listed on eBay, for like $13,000 or $14,000. I bought this for $32. So that'd be a good multiple on your money. Of course, not investment advice. Do what y'all want to do. But that is something to keep in mind. That is why I bought these, I bought the ones that are toned or a little more rare or good condition for the sake of resale for a higher value than what I did it for. These aren't plays just on the specific price of silver, but it is something that does go up with the price of silver. So that's that whole story with that. With that said, another thing that I'm into that I do actually, I think I make more money on my stocks most of the time than I do on the antique book business. I do make some good money on antique books, but I make a lot better money on my stock plays. So my stock plays, guys, I do play with, I'm not going to call them penny stocks, but normally cheaper stocks than what everyone else is playing with. I'm not going to buy Apple for whatever it's worth right now. I'm going to be playing with stocks that are, most of the ones I do are like $20 and less. So guys, last year I sold some stocks that I bought at about $1, sold them for $12 and some change each, which was basically the high of that particular stock. I recently bought some other ones basically at their lows. Well, actually, they were right here, went down to here, so I bought some more, and those are shooting up right now. Those are my plays for right now. I'm hoping they sell this year. Don't really have any time frames, but I do a lot of research. I know a guy that knows a lot of stuff as well, so I asked him for different stock picks as well. I do my own research on all the things that I can, make sure that I know everything that I can about these things to make sure I'm doing good plays. So far, I'm pretty good. I'm not going to tell you guys my win-loss ratio because you guys might call me a liar. I'm okay with that though. I don't really care. But that's another thing that I play with. Again, I make more money on stocks than I do on the actual antique book business, and I can guarantee I make more on stocks than I do on the YouTube channel, which pays me basically nothing. But with that said and done though, guys, that's basically all that I'm in. I think that's everything, at least. Every now and then I might do an odd job, manual labor, I guess. But besides that, yeah, that's everything that I do. So Mike the Used Book Guy, there you go. That's everything, Caleb, I guess. You're welcome. I hope this wasn't too boring for all of you guys that were unfortunate enough to watch this whole video. I hope that it was interesting enough for you guys. If you guys would like, I could show off all my different coins in a specific video for you guys on YouTube if you all want to do that, or Mike the Used Book Guy. If you want to do it, since you're the only member right now, you can request that for everyone to see, or I probably will make a post on it in the members only section otherwise, because some of them are pretty cool. For me, I particularly like this gold-toned Walking Liberty Half. That eagle on it just is so cool with gold toning. But with all that said and done though, guys, thank you for watching. Again, I'm sorry this went on for so long. I'm sorry if it was boring, but there are a lot of people that have asked these sorts of questions, and again, because Mike the Used Book Guy, my only member for the channel, asked for it, that means I had 100% of my channel members ask for it, so I sort of had to make a video on it. We'll see if I keep on doing that though. So with that said and done though, guys, thank you for watching. Again, be sure to check out one of my other videos if you want to learn about antique book buying, selling, all that sort of stuff, or about the gold and silver, all that sort of stuff. You guys can check out my channel below as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one.